Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us tonight. President Daniels is absent, so I will be calling this meeting to order. This is a special meeting. Welcome. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this special meeting is to approve a discussion and approval agenda and a consent agenda. At this time, I would like to ask Interim Superintendent Vela if there are any changes to the agenda.
Vice President Bettinger, a supplemental personnel report has been added to the consent agenda as item 3.06.
Thank you. And I would also like to add two discussion items to the agenda to discuss the next steps of the superintendent search and to discuss back to school, what we know about back to school at this point in time. Because it's August 4th and a lot of people have been asking about both those things. So I'd like to ask a board member to make a motion to add these agenda items.
I move that we add the 3.06 supplemental personnel report, discussion on superintendent search, and discussion on back to school.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made to add those three agenda items, 3.06 supplemental personnel reports, next steps in the superintendent search, and the back to school plan. Are there any questions or discussion? And I would like Council Curtis Leonard to just go over, I had questions that I emailed prior to the meeting about adding supplemental reports to the to these special meetings. So could you just clarify what you did for me about these?
Yes, thank you, Vice President Bettinger, and to the board. Good evening. The question was posed to me in regards to special board meetings versus regular board meetings. And there is a fundamental difference in terms of the notice that's required for a special board meeting and the business that can be conducted, the final business that can be conducted. In a special board meeting, unlike a regular board meeting, when notice is required to provide the business being conducted. And any new business that's potentially added that's not on the agenda, there cannot be final action taken. That's different than a regular board meeting. In a regular board meeting, you can amend the agenda or add new items to the agenda. Question was posed about the supplemental personnel report. That's an existing agenda item, so it's not viewed as a new agenda item. And so you would be able to add that because it's under the same category that you previously had. And you can add discussion items like you did today, but you wouldn't be able to add a new agenda item that would take final action. And so that's just something to note in your difference between a regular board meeting and a special board meeting.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any further questions, concerns, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. All those opposed say no and raise your right hand. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. All right. So on to 2.0, Board of Directors discussion and approval. Just point of order, I can add the two discussion items at the beginning or the end. Any suggestions? Robert's rules?
It doesn't matter. You've
Okay.
added it to the agenda. It might make sense to do it now just because we typically do our discussion items first.
Okay. All righty. So superintendent search, it is August 4th. And just wanted to let the public know next steps. So we have not as yet hired a search firm. We haven't even submitted an RFP. And as I understand it, we will be having meetings on later in August on the 17th and perhaps the 23rd is, I think, what I was told. So if someone, maybe Mr. Leonard, that would be you again, could tell us what's typical action, because as I understand it, we should be engaging a search firm. That's kind of job one.
Thank you, Vice President Bettinger. I can certainly take an opportunity to explain some different options that the board has. I know that appointing an interim is probably or potentially could be different than hiring a superintendent in a more permanent situation. I would tell you that most school districts would engage a superintendent search firm when hiring a replacement superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
For an interim, I would tell you that practice would probably be more of a mixed practice in terms of whether or not a school board engages a search firm or uses the services of like Puget Sound ESD or directly contacts previous superintendents and then make an appointment for an interim superintendent. If you recall, when Dr. Vargas left the district, the school board did not engage a search firm when appointing Dr. Apostle, and that was the most recent example. And so certainly the district could take proposals for the appointment of an interim and use search firm materials, but it's certainly an option of many. And if you had to ask me, Vice President Bettinger, what's normal, I would most likely tell you what I started with, which is search firms are most likely used when looking for your long-term replacement. And in an appointment situation for an interim, it's most likely a mixed practice.
So in your experience too, in selecting an interim, names are submitted, et cetera. And I know that has not happened yet for this board that I'm aware. So I guess we have to discuss this publicly because we can't discuss it in executive session. So I'm asking if any of my colleagues understand like who will be providing us names, if we should be reaching out on our own. You know, I'm kind of in the dark here. Maybe even Director Venkatasalam, you experienced this before.
Yeah. I thought this was understood, but I know in the past we've just had Curtis kind of take the lead on this. That keeps board members away from having any sort of engagement with, any private conversations or whatnot. So I, for myself, I have given names to Curtis in the past, and he's followed up on those, and then he brings it to the board as a whole. So if we have recommendations, we can do that, and let Curtis do the research on interims and come back to us for consideration. I mean, that's my suggestion.
Okay.
And in transparency, I have done that already with Curtis.
Okay, great.
Sorry,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Leonard.
Thank you. That's helpful. So would it be logical to say that at our next meeting, we will be looking at names, potential interims?
You mean on the 17th?
Yes.
That's, yeah, I'm glad you're putting this on for discussion because I wasn't really clear to what we're doing on the 17th. And it does seem like a lot of time will go by where somebody's not really doing any research or finding.
Right.
So I really thought we were all working with Mr. Leonard. So my apologies if that didn't, and I'm not quite sure if that has happened. So maybe Mr. Leonard, you can kind of chime in.
Yes, thank you. So I can tell you what I expressed previously in that I am not a superintendent search firm myself. Certainly I can act as an agent of the board and contact individuals that potentially could be placed as interims. I will tell you that I would most likely be operating at the discretion and the direction of the board, in that I don't have, I have some contacts, but really this is a board decision, right? And so as a board decision, I would be deferring to the names generated by the board, as opposed to a superintendent search firm who likely has a cadre of interested candidates that could help really consult with the board to say, have you looked at this person? And I, just in interest of disclosure, I've been so busy with my legal practice and bargaining that I do not have at my fingertips potential candidates that I could recommend to you all. That is probably what a superintendent search firm can provide for you. I certainly can provide as an agent of the district to reach out to these individuals. Since I do not work for the district, I'm not interested in terms of that. There's no conflict. I could reach out, engage interest, and then report back to the board. That is certainly something I can do, but I just want to explain to you my limitations and that I'm not a superintendent search firm.
Okay, yes, thank you. So just for clarity's sake, between now and our next meeting, the expectation is that the board would be providing names of interest to Mr. Leonard. I just want to make sure I'm very linear. I'd like to, so we would be suggesting names to Mr. Leonard and he would reach out to understand interest, and that we would be able to discuss those names on the 17th. That's the goal. Is that what people understand? The board understands?
Point of clarification, Vice President Bettinger. To be completely transparent, I don't have the foggiest where I would go about finding an interim list of interim superintendents. How would I begin if I wanted to make some suggestions on that? I mean, I don't know these people that are out there. I may have worked with some principals and superintendents in the past, but they certainly weren't in this district, and they're probably retired by now. So you help me. How would I do some research to even suggest some candidates?
I see that Ms. Howley sent us an email on what happened in 2014. There we did have, well, that was for the, this was for the superintendent search, not term. But in terms of how do we go about that, I honestly feel like, the folks that we know of, which would include Chief Wella, we need to see if there's interest and if they want to put their name forward so we can have a discussion about that. And I suspect this is an executive session in which Chief Wella and whoever else may not be present, correct?
Correct.
So if we wanted the PSESD to assist us, would that be just, I mean, the board president speaks for the full board. So would that be something that the board president would request at discussion of the board? Or could an individual board director, provide that? And I see a comment, WASA and AWSP would both have lists of current interim superintendents. Yes, thank you.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so basically the expectation or what has happened in the past is that board directors would do their own research and put names forward to Mr. Leonard, hopefully not like 107, but within, reason, and then we would discuss that at an executive session and probably need a regular session as well for the things that we can't discuss in executive session. Is that correct?
Yes, Vice President Bettinger, that is a fair process, and I will endeavor to be prepared for the 17th with a list of names, and I will have made initial contact with those individuals to gauge interest, and I'll be able to report back.
Okay. And then I know that a lot of us always want to engage the community in things too. So I don't even at this point, would it be a thought exchange for an interim, or is that too much? Or should we just, ask people to write to the board if they have strong opinion? I mean, I want the community to be involved in our decisions as well, since we are elected to represent them.
Can I just interject? Ms. Howley reminded discuss that we did put in an application for an interim superintendent. There was a job posting. Now, the problem with it is that we had, I guess, 2 weeks. Yeah, till mid, it was put out, the position closed October 28th. We had a lot more time, let's put it that way.
Right.
A little bit
we-
more than a month. So in this case, do we want to put anything out as a posting and reply very quickly? It would have to be a turnaround. We would have to say that whoever is interested would contact Mr. Leonard directly. So I think that could be done. The posting is done on our website. Sorry, I digressed. Right.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. It's just, what's going through my brain right now is we're in the unique position. This is a special meeting. So it feels like to make that decision as a board, while we have a quorum, we couldn't add that to this meeting because it's a special meeting, as we just had that discussion. So I'm just, the pondering is if we need to have another meeting before the 17th, like quickly to vote on that, on what next steps. This is kind of why I started asking for meetings like on the 18th of July, I think. It's because there's a lot of steps that need to be taken and there's time. And I think it's more appealing to me to put out a job application in addition to the other. But again, we can't decide that at this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it on the 11th. That is our regular board meeting.
Oh, we do have a board meeting on the 11th?
No,
okay,
I mean, it could be that could be a regular board meeting.
August 11th, yes?
Yes. Second week of.
Yes. Yeah, we can circle back and see if that would be possible, even if it's just, that's the only item on the meeting.
Unfortunately, time's not our friend. So regardless of what we do, we have to do it quick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
time is not our friend. That's why we're, yeah.
Point of clarification from Mr. Leonard. Mr. Leonard, I hear that I am to get some, if I have any names to suggest, that I am to get them to you. What is the timeline for you that you'd have to have them to have it prepared by the 17th?
Certainly, I would want, if we're looking at a week's lead time, many times I'm provided only a name and I need to get contact information or email and I need to do a little bit of research to find out who the individual is and where they are. And so I would want that information at least 5 days before the 17th. So I would tell you, Director Hamada, if you're getting me information this week and also into next week as late as the 11th,
okay,
that does appear to be sufficient time to make a contact. Now, that said, I want to provide due diligence. And if there's a name that comes to you and you provide it to me before the 17th, just before, I'll do my best, but just understand that the more time that I have to contact them, the more likelihood I'll have that ready for the 17th. And so if you provided me something on the 16th, I can't promise you that I'll be able to get contact.
I appreciate that. I have my homework and I will begin that and try to get it to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Howley did share that all board directors, except for Director Benno, are available on the 11th. So we could have a quick meeting on the 11th just to vote on whether we want to, which route we want to take for the interim search, if we want to also do a job application, if we want to do a job application, etc.
I'll still do my homework, even if I won't be at that meeting.
Yeah, and that would be a quick turnaround. if we're
Mhm.
saying 17th.
Yeah, it would be a quick turnaround. So,
Vice President Bettinger, I thought we couldn't make any decisions in a meeting.
we can't make any decisions. So we can, so really, even, giving names to Mr. Leonard, even that is a decision, right? So,
Well, we're not,
It's
right,
a
Yeah,
timeline. It's not a decision. It's a
right.
time-
It's a timeline. So, we could request another meeting on August 11th. Any board director can request a meeting on August 11th. And then on that day, we could finalize the route we want to go. Understanding that if we, this has been helpful to me just to understand that, there is an option to send names to Mr. Leonard, and also there is an option to have a job posting.
yeah, and I guess I'm not really clear when you said sending names would be violation. I'm not sending it to the board.
No, I know
board.
that, but it's like if we can't decide that that's the route we're going to do, and we're not going to do a job
Okay.
application or vice versa. It's like
Yeah.
to take any final action and decide how we're going to proceed next.
Yeah.
It's been helpful to hear the options, which heretofore I didn't even know the options, and that's kind of the guidance I was seeking tonight and the conversation I was seeking tonight. So it's, I know I'm going to be requesting a meeting for August 11th so we can finalize how we want to proceed.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I will be in, all right. Anyone else have any other comments for the good of the order on this item? Questions? All right. Then moving on to the next added item, which was just kind of an update on back to school, and Interim Chief Vela was really quickly responsive on my questions today, and I want to thank him for that. So understanding that things change, I did notice, thank you for providing the information that the website has been updated. It was updated, I think, 19 minutes after you got it to me right away. So Interim Superintendent Vela, could you please just give an update on what you know at this time?
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice President Bettinger, members of the board, Ms. Howley. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, I immediately started my role by attending our OSPI and Superintendent Reichdahl's presentation today, which was with all superintendents. So I'm going to give you just a broad overview, which was in more detail than what I sent and what we've already put on our website. But in general, what I garnered from the guidance was that we'll continue to rely on the guidance of the Washington State Department of Health and our state superintendent related to safety guidelines as per usual. Our focus will be on welcoming our staff back and students this fall. Secondly, we have our scheduled first day of school for August 26th. That's for grades 1 through 12. As you know, we start kinder a few days after, but we will be starting school August 26th. Thirdly, we do anticipate that guidance will continue to be shared with all districts. That's one of the themes that came through yesterday from Superintendent Reichdahl and his staff in the coming weeks. And so we plan to continue to update our community as it relates to the first day of school. And then lastly, that we will continue to provide as much information as possible to not only just for our current students, but any future students and families that continue to enroll in our district. And so we will continue to do that. I'll pause there. Those are in general what I garnered from our state superintendent. I'll pause there to see if the board has any other additional questions.
I have a question. I was looking at the updated website, which on the website it's under Return Safely, which is great and easy to see. I didn't see anything about virtual options. I know families have been asking about what virtual options for elementary, middle, and high school would be, and I don't really see those here, and I don't remember hearing about what those are and if those have been discussed.
Thank you, Director Benno. What I want to do first, I want to allow our Executive Director for Communications and Public Affairs, Ms. Melissa Laramie, to share a little bit more detail on what has gone out in terms of website, and then I'll follow up with Dr. Harmon for any additional pieces. Melissa?
Thank you, Interim Superintendent Bella. Good evening, board, Ms. Halley. We did update the website, and it is a match to what the guidance from Department of Health provided just last Thursday on July 28th. We've had several meetings with executive directors. We've provided this information to principals, and then we're pushing it out to families on Friday in our newsletter. But as guidance continues to change, we really follow our communication protocols to ensure that our leaders are able to answer questions at the school level, from their staff, from their community, from families that are new and incoming. When we started talking about, it was end of June when OSPI released, or mid-June, excuse me, when OSPI released the requirements for if you're going to host any type of virtual learning in this school year in 21-22. And where we are at right now, which is in the website article, not on the page, and it's in the FAQ on the Return Safely webpage. So in a couple different places, and we've shared this in a couple different updates over the summer, is that we are exploring full-time, long-term remote learning as an option for our students in the future. It is not ready. It is not an option for students to enroll in that for the start of the 21-22 school year. But this exploration, what's required is a shift for our district, to just meet the minimums, but really provide the excellence that we're committed to, really is going to require an exploration of what is sustainable, what are the investments. And this is a labor partner conversation. This is not just simply a conversation, a decision we can make, but we have to work in partnership as we do on all the other major decisions, particularly with instruction with our labor partners. And so we're look forward to engaging in that. As you know, and you've heard several times this evening, July was a month for staff to get well-deserved rest. So we look forward to those conversations really taking off and getting into place before our next registration season.
Thank you, Melissa.
I'm sorry. Is it okay if I ask a question right now?
Please.
And but heretofore, didn't KMVA or Kent Phoenix Academy offer online options for students?
There was a virtual high school, which was for a specific group of students, but the guidance for remote learning is different than other ALE options that have been in place before COVID.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you send me the direct link to where that is? Because I'm looking at the two places, the return to schools and the info and updates.
Sure.
I don't see what you're referencing. So I would appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. It's our return to school safely. It's second to last paragraph in the website article. And then it should be one of the top FAQs, and I'll confirm that it is if you scroll to the bottom of the return safely page, which is our web address, kent.k12.wa.us/return safely. And it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th question down. Is there an online only option for 21-22? So it's both on that page and in the web article. And I can drop the links in.
One other point of privilege, I apologize to the board. One other large theme that was overheard at our OSPI update was that all districts are preparing to come back 100%. That was mentioned, shared several times, and ended off our meeting with that. And so I apologize, I meant to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful. Any other questions, comments?
I have just a general comment. I've been perusing different social media and got some emails regarding, I don't think it's, perhaps I'm incorrect, but what I'm seeing from some of our community members is they are not aware that we're not going to be providing an alternative, and they're waiting for that to come out. And at this point, I don't know, because I've never had a child that had to go to a different school to be online, to a different academy. Do they need time to be aware of that, to get them enrolled and stuff? Or, I mean, should we be making this a lot more apparent that we are not providing anything for that?
Director Hamada, I appreciate your question. We have shared this in multiple communications. We will continue to share it, and we are seeing family coming in. I've had the opportunity to lead by supporting our front desk receptionist, and we're answering questions on the phone, on email, through our enrollment process. And so we are providing information to families, whether they're new to the district, they're moved, or they have questions. And so we will continue to share information and make that more clear if it's not clear in the communication that's out currently and being pushed out to families on Friday.
Yeah, I just think there's kind of a gap there that a lot of people are not understanding that. I'm wondering then, if we have really fragile health students, their expectation is they have to take care of this themselves in another method other than Kent School District. I want to make sure I'm totally clear on that. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, Director Hamada, actually, if a student requires an accommodation for a health reason, we have a process for that through our 504 process. That has always been in place, and that continues to be a service we provide. And that continues to happen, but that is done on a per child basis to meet their individual needs.
But what I'm trying to say, Ms. Laramie, I'm not trying to be repetitive, but I have a granddaughter that was preemie. She's not listed with any 504 or anything in her district or any IEP or anything like that. She's actually in an accelerated learning program, and she's remaining remote, and her school district is offering remote next year. But if she were in our district and my daughter and son-in-law wish to have her continue remote because of some of her health reasons that in the past it could be a concern, but not listed, is she then have to go to another area to find an online school? That's the question I want answered.
Thank you for clarifying. While I communicate about our processes, Executive Director Heath oversees that process. So Randy, can you help?
Absolutely. Vice President Bettinger, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Bella. We have a number of families even before this scenario that have chosen the online route. There is an abundance of programs in the state of Washington run through various different districts. We are not able to recommend specific districts per OSPI guidelines. All we can do is direct families to look on the OSPI website with the list of accredited online programs that are out there. And then basically they would apply directly to those programs, and then they would receive a release from our district for them to attend those.
Okay. Because if I'm going to answer questions that people are asking me, I want to make sure I understand it, that there's no mystery, and forgive me, I'm being repetitive. I'm wondering, the dollars that go with those kids do not go to our district any longer, correct? If they're not in our district?
Correct. It would be like they have received a transfer to Tahoma School District or Auburn School District. They will, their apportionment would go to the district that runs the online program.
And worst case scenario, let's say, COVID like it has been increasing certain areas with the Delta variants and some other variants that I hear are coming in. And if we would have to go back to, hybrid and maybe online all the time again, are we prepared to make that switch when we're getting completely out of virtual again?
I can take that, Director Hamada. I think the theme that I shared last from OSPI is that we will be coming back 100%. In addition to that, as things continue to change, we certainly will be looking at that as we move along. We did hear from public health as part of our presentation, so we know what those numbers are. At this time, there's nothing different than what I shared just recently. So we will continue to be prepared for 100%. I also wanted to add one more thing to Executive Director Heath's explanation, is that each district, this is an individual type of plan, regardless of the pandemic or not. There are nurses, there's requirement to work with specific districts, and schools must work with their caretakers. And so oftentimes it's done, I know in our district, through an individualized health plan to look at what are some of the needs potentially. And as Mr. Heath mentioned, it could even require specific accommodations under 504. So I just wanted to add that districts need to move through a process for students to have access at their home school district.
And am I correct in we have enough space to go with the guidelines of social distancing with 5 days in person? We're going to be able to make that happen?
Superintendent Reichdahl was clear about there is not a 6-foot social distancing in place. We do have the abundance of space. We obviously will be implementing the safety protocols as the Department of Health requires. And so to answer your question, we will have those in place.
Okay, thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Thank you.
Does anyone else have question, concern, comment? Staff too. I would open it up to you. If you have any information that you think would be valuable to our families who are asking questions. All right. Well, thank you very much. These have been 2 valuable conversations, and thank you for answering those questions, and I really appreciate that. So we're going to move on to Board of Directors discussion and approval. So resolution 2.01, 2.01, resolution number 1608, appointment of interim superintendent. So I'm going to ask a board director to make a motion.
I move that we accept resolution number 1608, appointment of interim superintendent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made to approve item 2.01, resolution number 1608, appointment of interim superintendent. Any discussion or questions?
I just would like to say to Mr. Vela, thank you for accepting this responsibility, and we appreciate your service to the district. And I think with your background and your history with Kent School District, I feel relieved that you're going to be in that position for 30 days at least, and maybe longer. I did have, I did want to thank everybody for answering all my questions that I sent in. I don't know if it's appropriate right now, but I definitely feel in accepting this that if Mr. Vela, even for 30 days, is going to take on more responsibility, that there should probably be some compensation for that. And I don't know where that discussion is appropriate, but I feel strongly that he deserves that. So just putting that out.
Can anyone speak to her comment, question?
Yes, Director Hamada. The district is working on an interim contract for for Superintendent Vela, and this will come to the board for approval at a future date. And that will include such items that have been negotiated, such as compensation for the work that's being performed for that period of time.
Another thing to add to the 11th.
And when you're saying, I know this is nitpicky, but Mr. Leonard, when you're saying district, who's included in the district that is putting this together?
So currently, a draft has been started, which will have board approval. It's been sent to President Daniels. Staff have looked at it. I know Chief Labor has looked at it. And I know Mr. Vela also has counsel involved. And so it will be circulated, and the final approval will be by the board.
Thank you.
Any further?
I just want to add also thank you to, I apologize, no longer Chief Vela, but Interim Superintendent Vela. Welcome, and thank you for accepting this opportunity for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no and raise your right hand. All right, any abstentions? And I was reminded that this is actually item number 2.03. All the items have changed. So just for clarity, I'm going to call for another motion to number it 2.03, please. So I will call for a motion on 2. No, it's 2. Oh, okay. This is we're in 3. Oh, Ms. Howley, thank you very much for keeping us on track. So this discussion and approval now has changed to 3. So it is 3.01. Oh, thank you, Ms. Howley, for helping. Okay, so 3.01, I'm going to call for a motion just to be clear and make sure that everything is all good and above board. Can I get a motion on 3.01, resolution number 1608, appointment of interim superintendent? I can't hear you.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve 3.01, resolution number 1608, appointment of interim superintendent.
Point of clarification. We have a 3.01 under.
Yes, that's going to move to 4.
It's changed. It's been updated.
Okay.
It's updated. It's going to move to 4.
Oh, man. Okay.
Does anyone second?
I second.
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion? Thank you, Ms. Howley, for keeping us on the straight and narrow. I appreciate it. All right. Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no and raise your right hand. All right. Any abstentions? Motion passes again. All right. Thank you.
Point of clarification, Vice President Bettner, why are we leaving out 2.001 at all? All of them?
Because 2.0 became discussion. Those 2 discussion items became 2.0. So we discussed those 2 items as 2.0. So now Board of Directors discussion and approval has moved to 3. So all of them are now renumbered 3, and the consent agenda will be 4, as I understand it. So I appreciate the question, actually. So for those following along at home, looking at the agenda, you can keep track. If you take notes like me,
I just refreshed the screen and it updated on the BoardDocs page. So thank goodness.
Oh, good. So good. It's questions are good. It brings clarity. I appreciate it all. Okay, 3.02. 2021-2022 Professional Services Contract, Communities and Schools of Kent and Kent School District. I will ask for a motion.
I make a motion we approve 3.02, 2021-2022 Professional Services Contract, Communities and Schools of Kent and Kent School District.
I'll second.
All right. Motion has been made and seconded. I'll ask for any discussion or questions.
I had some comments on this and most of my questions were answered. And I do want to thank everybody for all the great answers I got. It is an educational process to me to understand that the community of schools, which I've been a part of for a long time, mentoring, and in 5 different school districts, not only this one. It's about $1 million business. I mean, with our school district and their part that they're bringing about 500,000 is pretty interesting of how much money that brings into our schools. I was just kind of shocked, to tell you the truth. So they bring in about 500,000 from all their fundraising and resources and donations, etc. And you know, this is a 618,727 contracts, so that's quite a bit of money. Just a point of reference.
Any other discussion or questions? All right. All those in favor of approving 3.02 2021-2022 professional services contract, communities and schools of Kent and Kent School District, please raise your right hand and say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say no and raise your right hand. Any abstention? Motion passes. Next on the agenda, 3.03 Kent Lake. I would entertain a motion for Kent Lakes High School grant application to Professional Educator Standards Board.
I move that we accept Kent Lake High School grant application to Professional Educator Standards Board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no and raise your right hand. Any abstentions? Motion passes. I will entertain a motion for item number 3.04, Honeywell portable air filters for classrooms contract to KCDA.
I move that we approve the Honeywell portable air filters for classrooms contract to KCDA.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Any questions or conversation?
I just have a quick question. I'm wondering if all of those, if we approve this tonight, if they will all be in place by the time school starts.
Thank you for the question, Director Hamada. We have Gordon Cook, who is with us today that can answer that. Gordon?
Yes, hello, Vice President Bettinger, Board's Interim Superintendent, and Ms. Howley. That's the plan, and when we submit, if this is approved tonight, we'll submit the purchase order tomorrow, and then I'll know a specific date. They estimate 2 to 3 weeks for them to have. Because we're still in a moderate season, you know, as far as temperature, if we go a week or 2 into the school, we'll be able to run 100% outside air and meet the guidance, you know, for this. But we're purchasing these because we can't continue to do that in extreme cold or extreme hot conditions.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no and raise your right hand. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to 4.0 consent agenda. I will ask the board if they want to pull a consent agenda item for discussion.
Wait a minute. Hang on a minute here. I gotta look at my differences. I wanted to just for discussion pull 4.04.
All right. We're pulling, so consent agenda item 4.04. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4.01 through 4.06, pulling item 4.04.
I make a motion, we approve 4.0 consent agenda minus 4.04.
I'll second it.
All right. And now A motion has been made and seconded. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no and raise your right hand. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Now I will entertain a motion for consent agenda item 4.04, gift acceptance. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve 4.04 gift acceptance.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question. It was a question we got from the community about field studies or pilot programs, et cetera. Can someone kind of clarify? I don't know who that would go to, interim superintendent Vela, as far as like how do field tests or how they work, how long do they last, or pilot studies or whatnot. So I'm just kind of curious about that.
No, thank you, Director Benno. I'm going to call on Mr. Nell West, our Chief Teaching and Learning Officer, who can talk to you about how and what a field test is and how we in our district follow through with something like that. Nell.
Good evening, Vice President Bettinger, Interim Superintendent Vela, members of the board, and Ms. Howley. Our curriculum field test process, if there is a resource that folks would like to review and pilot, there's an application process that they would need to complete. And then there is a committee that is convened to actually review the application and make a recommendation for the field test to move forward. The field test timeline is typically mapped out in that application to kind of indicate the length of the field test, and then it would have to go through a formal instructional materials committee process in order to be an adopted resource that would be continued to be used throughout the district or within that particular school.
And how long would a pilot or field test last before we would see if that's something we want to continue with?
Typically for the school year, that's I've seen in the past where some field test items in Kent may have lasted longer than a school year. And it was due to like that pause in curriculum adoption. So the field test was extended for a little bit longer length of time. But a field test, if it's something that's focused only on let's say a program that's going to be taught and implemented in the spring, or it's a program that's implemented in the fall, like the field test could have those time limitations on, because that's when the curriculum will be taught and the information that you hope to capture would be available at the end of that window.
Awesome. And for the purposes of this motion, under gifts, it was a donor committee for children. And as I looked at the answers from the questions that Director Hamada asked, it was from a program we already use at the middle schools called Second Step. So I'm assuming this has gone through the process, or is this gift donation for the field test? And then this will kind of allow for them to go through that process to get this tested, or is this part of that Second Step curriculum? I guess I was just unclear why there would be a donation for a field test. Like I'm kind of confused about that. So if someone could clarify.
So I'm going to, our Second Step program is managed by Student Family and Support Services. So I'm going to ask Mr. Heath to provide some additional context around this particular item.
Yes, thank you. That, as you stated, that Second Step is used in our middle schools. It is the adopted curriculum. They have, for a number of years, they continue to try to make their products better and make sure that they are working in our schools. And so, and we do have the principal of the school where this was happening, Doris Johnson, here tonight as well, that we can ask some questions for. But this was in recognition that they were looking to tweak some of their programs, is my understanding, and they just wanted the staff to give some tries to the curriculum tweaks that was an adopted curriculum already. And so this was in recognition of the time and effort that the staff was using in order to kind of give feedback on after delivering the curriculum and recognition of the extra time it took for that.
I see. So I guess my concern that I thought, which is one of the reasons why I was glad Director Hamada pulled this aside, was that they're donating money. This group is donating money, but we already buy the curriculum from them, and it feels like a conflict of interest. It just feels really weird to me. Like I don't understand this process. So why is it happening like this?
Right.
To Director Beno, so specifically on the answer that we gave, this was part of participating in an already adopted curriculum in the tweak. Because of the year that we had last year, they weren't able to pass along the gift, if you will. That's because it's under gift acceptance.
Yeah.
And so they're doing it now that they're able to catch up, obviously, with the year we had last year. And so that's specifically what this is about.
Okay, I really appreciate the transparency. I just want, because it just, when I look at it, it just looked weird, looked suspicious, but I knew there was nothing nefarious. I just wanted clarification.
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that.
And
No
for
problem.
further clarity, it doesn't, there's no expectation of anything else based on this gift.
Correct.
So I did have a somewhat related question on that. I know we have Second Step, but we continue to invest in social emotional learning curriculum. And I go back to our educators of color asking for a more sort of a robust program of addressing equity and looking at not just Second Step, but I believe prior to school starting, they had asked for a district-approved SEL surrounding race matters. And I'm wondering, are we moving forward towards any of that? And is Committee for Children providing anything of a sort, what they're looking for?
Well, I will say that the Committee for Children, along with all of the producers of social emotional curriculum, understand this need, and they are out trying to develop that. And that's one of the reasons they are continually in development and why they work with schools such as Meridian in order to try to maybe test out some of the things that they're doing. I don't think specifically what Meridian was doing was around this. We are always looking for, there's not a generally recognized, this is the program to go with in terms of SEL, in terms of culturally responsive. I think all of the companies that do social emotional learning, they have, they're paying attention to what's going on, and they're hearing the same things, the feedback around, we need this. So I know that all the companies are really working to really look at their curriculum and kind of tear it apart and see, can these things be added? Are there things that we need to get rid of because they are reinforcing some negative pieces that were unintended? And so I think we will get to a point probably within the next couple of years where we will want to maybe look at doing another full adoption of both our elementary and middle school, which is currently both committees' Second Step, and see, are there other companies out there that are maybe, have produced something that we want to go with instead because it more meets the needs of what we're looking at. But we want to go through a full curriculum adoption with that. We don't want to, there's a whole process for that. So
yeah, I just want to make sure I agree that, if we are accepting a donation, we're not somewhat tied. There are other areas that we have to focus on and not just Second Step. So I just want to make sure we're planning to do that investment in a very thoughtful way.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just have, you guys all answered my question so thoroughly. But this brings another question to light. when we're discussing this is am I under the understanding that the second step went through a curriculum of adoption to begin with? Is that the beginning of the process? And I was just wondering how we centered on second step to begin with. Is it easier for me to understand that by a short explanation?
I will tell you that was the district adopted curriculum when I arrived in the district in 2014. So, so it probably is a good time to maybe take a look at this in the near future and see if this is the curriculum that we still want to use.
Okay, so then that makes me a little more concerned about potential conflicts of interest if we're getting a gift when this is potentially going to be, this kind of work is going to, or curriculum is going to be up for review. But as I understood it from reading the answers to the questions, this was, again, from what Mr. Vela said, that this was something that was supposed to arrive earlier in the year. Yes?
That is correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, is there a timeline when we look at curriculum for different areas? I'm just curious, like so many years, or is there anything we use as a guideline on that?
Yes, we do actually have adopted board policy and procedure. It is outdated, and we have engaged in June, starting to invite members from our KEA members, in addition to our KPA members, to go through and review some selected policies and procedures that we plan to bring before the board this fall for update and review. So we have a tentative updated curriculum adoption schedule for our academic courses, like our core academic courses. We can work with our student, family, and support services team to see if they'd like to include second step on that calendar. But traditionally in our board policy, it outlined particular courses and programs. So you wouldn't traditionally see any supplemental or replacement curriculum for inclusive education. You wouldn't see on that adoption schedule any information around our CTE curriculum review or adoption. But those are some of the things that we, in our revision and updates, that we plan to include in our fall review. So we're updating that, and our goal is to provide a more accurate timeline so that it is public facing around what that review cycle would look like.
Thank you, Chief. That's very helpful. I mean, this discussion is really helping educate me too. So thank you very much.
That's very helpful. And if I'm recalling, it was in the spring that we voted for the new instructional materials committee. And if I'm recalling too, that citizens can be on it. So if they're interested, they can reach out. I recall you saying that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the board would give us names names of our parents that would like to be a part of the instructional materials committee. And then we just follow up with the communication and the schedule so that they have access to all the resources and can attend each of the meetings.
Great.
Ask a follow-up. As the instructional materials committee looks at the curriculum, there's a tool, an equity tool that you use to look at the curriculum to make sure that's inclusive and friendly and looks at communities in a positive light and representative of different communities, I'm assuming, right?
That is correct. The team has adopted some of the guidance from OSPI and the tools that they've put together. When we originally, in the past, like there were general questions, then in 2018, 2019, we had a more formalized criteria and sort of a rating system that folks would use to kind of indicate those things. And in the last year, the team has attended some of the sessions hosted by OSPI and has really dug into some of those materials, in addition to a couple others, which I can't recall on the top of my head, but I know in a previous board update, we kind of mapped out the different rubrics and tools that are used, and I'm happy to come back with that information later.
For sure. Thank you so much for answering that.
Yeah, this has been a very helpful discussion, actually. So any more questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of item 4.04 gift acceptance, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no and raise your right hand. Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. And that is the end of our agenda today. I'd like to thank everyone for being here. And I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you for watching. And it is now 7:50 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
Aye.
Thank you.